Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about crane safety.
Okay.
Specifically, OSHA regulation 1926.1415.
Right.
It's about all the safety devices you need on a crane to operate it safely. So this is going to be really relevant for folks who are operating cranes or want to operate cranes or are safety personnel on a site where cranes are operating.
For sure. So we're not just going to talk about what the regulations say.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about like why these things are important and what could go wrong.
And really try and get to that nitty gritty. Like if you don't follow these regulations,
exactly.
what could happen?
Yep.
So to start off, let's talk about crane level indicators. So everyone knows the crane level indicator.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about like what would happen if you were operating on slightly uneven ground?
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't have it?
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how cranes tip over. You know, if the ground's not level and you're lifting a heavy load, you shift the center of gravity too far and you're going to have a tip over.
Yeah. And that's why OSHA says most cranes have to have a level indicator.
Absolutely.
And there are different types of level indicators out there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different types.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your bubble indicators, which are the simple ones, just a bubble in a tube.
Yeah.
You've got electronic inclinometers, which are more sophisticated.
Yeah.
And then you've even got some that use like pendulum systems.
Okay.
But they all essentially do the same thing, which is tell you whether the crane is level or not.
And it's important to know, like as an operator, that you could get a faulty reading from one of these.
Absolutely. You know, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
They can be affected by wear and tear, calibration issues, even extreme weather conditions.
So like if you're up there and you're like, I don't know if this is right.
Yeah, and that's a big red flag. Yeah. You know, if you're questioning the reading on your level indicator, you need to stop operations immediately and have it checked out.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're operating and it's wrong and you don't know.
Yeah, you're putting yourself and everyone around you at risk.
Yeah.
And OSHA is very clear about that.
Yeah.
You know, if your level indicator is malfunctioning, you can't operate.
And there have been some like really bad accidents.
Oh, yeah.
Where that was a factor.
Absolutely. There was a famous case a few years back in Seattle.
Oh, really?
A tower crane was operating with a malfunctioning level indicator.
Oh, no.
And the operator didn't realize how far out of level he was.
Oh, wow.
And the whole thing came crashing down.
Jeez.
Multiple fatalities.
Oh, my gosh.
It was really a stark reminder that these devices are not just bureaucratic hurdles.
Yeah.
They're there to prevent tragedies.
Yeah, for sure. So that is one device we want to talk about. Another one is the boom stops. Okay. So if you think about a crane, you know, and you're swinging a load and the boom just keeps going.
Yeah.
That would be a problem.
That's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
You know, a boom swing gone wrong can lead to all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah.
Collisions with buildings, power lines, other cranes. Yeah. And with the forces involved, the damage is rarely minor.
Right.
You're talking structural collapse, electrocution.
Wow.
Loads being dropped from potentially deadly heights.
So boom stops.
Yeah.
They're there to prevent all that.
Exactly. They act as like a physical barrier to the boom's movement.
Yeah.
They're typically set to the crane's maximum safe working radius. So even if the operator makes a mistake or there's some sort of mechanical failure, the boom stop will prevent that catastrophic overswing.
But it's interesting, though, that those themselves can fail.
Oh, yeah. Anything can fail.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading about a case where a boom stop actually snapped.
Oh, wow.
During operation.
Really?
Due to metal fatigue.
Oh, geez.
So, you know, these things are not foolproof. They need to be inspected regularly, maintained properly.
Yeah.
You can't just assume they're always going to be there to save the day.
Right.
They need to be checked for wear and tear corrosion.
So what are some of the things like when you're inspecting a boom stop?
Okay, so when you're inspecting a boom stop, first of all, you want to do a visual check. Okay. You want to look for any cracks, bends, deformation in the boom stop itself, as well as the mounting brackets and the bolts that hold it in place. Make sure everything is securely fastened. Yeah. Then you want to check the operation of the stop, make sure it engages smoothly and that it holds the boom firmly in place.
Okay.
And of course, you always refer to the manufacturer's instructions for specific inspection and maintenance procedures.
Yeah, because every train's going to be a little different.
Exactly. Every crane's going to be a little bit different. So it's important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations.
So we talked about boom stops, and that's for like the main boom.
Right.
What about for cranes that have a job?
Yeah, so a job is essentially like a smaller extension of the main boom, and they have their own stops as well.
They're called job stops.
They're called jib stops.
Okay.
And they serve the same purpose as boom stops.
Yeah.
They prevent the job from swinging too far. And they also protect against collisions and all the other hazards we talked about.
So it's like the same thing, just on a smaller scale.
Exactly. It's the same concept.
Okay.
Just applied to the job.
So let's talk about another device that maybe isn't as obvious, but it's important as well.
Yeah.
Foot pedal brake locks.
Okay.
So you ever been driving and you accidentally hit the gas when you meant to hit the brake?
Thankfully not.
Okay, good.
But I can see how that would be bad.
Yeah.
Especially in a crane.
Yeah.
Where you're dealing with such heavy loads and, potentially dangerous situations.
Yeah. So brake locks are designed to prevent that from happening.
They prevent unintentional movement of the crane.
Yeah.
Especially when it's stationary.
Yeah.
So, imagine an operator steps off the brake pedal for a moment, maybe to reach for a lever or adjust something in the cabin. Yeah. Without a brake lock, the crane could start to roll.
Yeah, especially on an incline.
Yeah. And even a slight roll, can have serious consequences.
Right.
Could lead to a collision or a dropped load.
Yeah.
So it's not just about preventing a major accident.
Yeah.
It's about those little movements that could escalate into something much bigger.
Right. So it's like all about just preventing those small things.
Yeah, exactly. It's about those small things that can turn into big things.
Yeah. I mean, I've never operated a crane.
You're right.
But I'm curious, for the people out there who have, have you ever had a situation where a brake lock really saved you?
Yeah.
Or you saw something happen where if it wasn't engaged, it could have been really bad.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear from some operators out there.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about your experiences.
About their experiences with brake locks. It's amazing how these little things can make such a big difference.
Totally.
Between a safe operation and a major accident.
For sure. Yep. So speaking of which, let's talk about outriggers and stabilizer jacks.
Okay.
So for our listeners who might not know, these are basically the crane's foundation.
Right. They're extra legs for the crane.
Yeah.
They widen the base of the crane.
Yeah.
And they distribute the weight more evenly, which is really important when you're lifting heavy loads.
Right, especially if you're on uneven ground.
Especially on uneven ground, yeah. Without outriggers, you're basically balancing this massive weight on a tiny little point, which is not a good idea.
Not good.
Yeah.
And it's not just about putting those outriggers down.
Right.
It's about making sure they're locked in place.
Yeah, you got to make sure they're locked in place.
Those holding devices.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit more about what are the risks if you don't have them locked in place?
Yeah, so imagine you're lifting a load.
Yeah.
And suddenly one of the outriggers collapses.
Oh.
It'd be like kicking the legs out from under a chair.
Yeah.
Except the chair is a multi-ton crane.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, not good at all.
And what are some things that could go wrong with outrigger setup?
Well, one common mistake is not extending the outriggers fully. Maybe the operator's trying to save time.
Yeah.
Or they misjudge the ground conditions. But even a partially extended outrigger can create instability.
Okay.
So those holding devices make sure that the outriggers are locked at their full extension.
Yeah.
So you're getting that maximum stability.
Okay.
Another thing is ground conditions.
Right. Yeah, because if it's soft or uneven.
Exactly. Soft or uneven ground can be a major hazard.
Yeah.
If the outrigger pads aren't properly supported, they can sink or shift.
Oh, no.
Which compromises the stability of the whole crane.
Wow.
So operators need to carefully assess the ground and use appropriate cribbing or mats to create a solid base for the outriggers.
So it's all about making sure it's nice and level and secure.
Exactly.
Before you even start.
Before you even start lifting anything.
Okay.
And then, of course, the holding devices themselves can fail.
Right.
Maybe due to wear and tear or improper maintenance.
Yeah.
So it's important to inspect those regularly as well. Make sure they're in good working order.
Okay.
The locking mechanisms are functioning properly, and there's no sign of damage or corrosion.
Yeah.
So, it's just another thing to add to your checklist.
Yeah.
When you're doing your inspections.
So we've talked about outriggers and stabilizer jacks.
Yeah.
Which are for stationary cranes.
Right.
But what about cranes that are on rails?
So cranes on rails,
Yeah.
they need a different kind of safety device.
Okay.
They need rail clamps and stops.
Okay, what do those do?
So rail clamps,
Yeah.
they basically lock the crane onto the rails.
Okay.
Which prevents it from moving unintentionally.
So it's not just going to roll away?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not going to roll away.
Oh, yeah.
And they're especially important during travel.
Right.
When the crane is most vulnerable to derailment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have rail stops.
Okay.
Which act like physical barriers.
Yeah.
That limit the crane's movement along the rails.
So it can only go so far.
Exactly. It can only go so far.
Okay.
So it's like a safety net that keeps the crane within its designated operating zone.
Okay.
And of course, like any safety device,
Yeah.
these need to be inspected regularly as well. Make
Right.
sure the clamps are engaging properly, the stops are securely anchored,
Yeah.
and there's no sign of damage or wear.
Yeah, okay. So it's like the same idea as everything else.
Yeah, it's all about prevention.
Yeah.
Making sure that everything is in good working order.
Yeah.
And that there are multiple layers of safety in place.
So let's end this section by talking about something that might seem a little obvious.
Okay.
The crane horn.
The horn.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what a horn is for.
Yeah.
But on a construction site, it becomes even more important.
Why is that?
Because it's a critical communication tool.
Okay.
It's not just about warning drivers on nearby roads.
Right.
It's about alerting everyone on site. Workers, operators of other machinery, safety personnel.
So it's like, hey, I'm about to do something.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I'm about to swing this massive load.
Be aware.
Be aware.
Yeah.
And in a noisy, chaotic environment like a construction site, that kind of clear communication can be life-saving.
Yeah.
A horn blast can be the difference between someone stepping out of the way and getting caught in the swing radius.
Oh, yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, so, it's a small thing, but it can make a big difference.
So as we've seen with all these safety devices, it's all about really understanding what their purpose is.
Absolutely.
And operating with safety in mind.
Safety first.
Always.
Right.
It's not just about, checking off a box.
Right.
It's really about understanding why.
Yeah. Understanding the why behind the regulations.
And then taking it a step further. What can we do beyond the minimum?
Exactly.
Right.
How can we go above and beyond to make things even safer?
Yeah. So for example.
Well, for example, what about more frequent inspections of those safety devices?
Yeah.
Maybe going above and beyond what OSHA mandates.
Right.
Or what about investing in additional training programs that focus not just on the technical aspects of crane operation, but also on cultivating that safety-first culture?
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there
Totally.
to really make a difference.
And then we also have, technology.
Oh, yeah. Technology is a big one.
That's coming into play.
Absolutely.
And what are some of the ways that you see technology?
Well, we're seeing some really cool stuff, like proximity sensors that can alert operators if they're getting too close to obstacles.
Oh, that's cool.
Or automated warning systems that activate if the crane exceeds its safe operating limits.
Oh, wow. So they'll tell you.
Yeah, it'll basically tell you hey, you're pushing it too far.
You're about to go too far.
Back it up.
Yeah.
So it's really, technology is really helping to enhance safety.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that it's not a substitute for human vigilance.
Yeah, you still need to be paying attention.
Exactly. You still need to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Technology can help.
It can help.
But it's not a silver bullet.
It's not going to do everything for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here today, I think some key takeaways are those OSHA regulations.
Mm-hmm.
They're there for a reason.
Absolutely.
And they've been developed based on a lot of, hard lessons learned.
Years of experience. Countless lessons learned.
Yeah.
Often tragically.
Yeah.
So, we need to take them seriously.
Yeah. And also, safety, It's everybody's responsibility.
It's everyone's responsibility.
Like out there on the job site.
Absolutely.
Not just the crane operator.
You got it.
And then, it's a journey.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah. There's always more to learn.
Always more to learn.
So we encourage you guys to really, delve deeper into those OSHA resources.
Absolutely.
Not just what we talked about today.
Yeah.
But like go look at it all.
Check it all out.
And keep asking questions. Keep learning and keep each other safe.
Keep
each other safe out there. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks everyone.